Dad's attorney is transferring this title today, so pack your things because you are getting thrown out right now.
I just watched the security feed clip you forwarded me, and 11 seconds in, that is clearly a crime.
Your sister needs this luxury place far more than you do. So stop being selfish and leave us alone.
You are under arrest right now for felony grand larceny, forgery in the first degree, and real estate fraud.
Get her stuff out on the lawn before the locks are rekeyed, or I'm calling the police to report a trespasser. My sister sneered, kicking my custom oak coffee table with her designer heel. My mother didn't even flinch. She just stood there, sipping her tea in my living room, holding a cardboard box filled with my personal photographs. "It's for the best," my mother said coldly, tossing my college diploma straight into the trash bag. "Your sister actually has a future to protect. You've always been selfish enough to handle yourself on the street." I stood in the doorway of the condo I had spent 7 years paying off, watching my own family throw my life into plastic bags. The neighbors were gathered in the hallway, whispering, taking videos on their phones, watching me get evicted from my own home like a criminal. My sister smirked, leaning against the kitchen counter that I had paid $30,000 to renovate. "You lost," she whispered so only I could hear. "Dad's money, this place, everything. It's all mine now." But that's not where this story began. 3 months earlier, I packed my bags for an extended corporate assignment in London. As a senior forensic accountant for a top-tier international firm, my job was simple: dig through financial trails, find corporate fraud, and systematically dismantle people who thought they were above the law. I lived quietly, kept my head down, and never bragged about my income or my position. To my family, I was just the quiet middle child who did something with numbers. My sister, on the other hand, was the golden child. She was loud, entitled, and utterly incapable of keeping a job. My mother spent her entire life shielding her from consequences, constantly demanding that I sacrifice my savings to fuel my sister's lavish lifestyle. When my father passed away 2 years ago, he left behind a modest estate, a family trust, and a distinct instruction that my mother and sister were to be monitored closely. They resented me for being named the sole independent trustee of my father's liquid assets, but they took comfort in assuming I was weak and conflict-averse. Before leaving for London, my mother called me, crying about how my sister was going through a difficult transition after another failed business venture. She begged me to let my sister stay at my luxury downtown penthouse for just a weekend while I was away. I explicitly said no. I locked my doors, set my security systems, and boarded my flight. They had no idea what was coming. 2 weeks into my trip, a motion alert notification flashed on my phone at 3 in the morning London time. I opened the live feed from the hidden 4K ceiling camera I had installed in my living room bookshelf, a habit of my profession. What I saw made my blood run cold. My sister wasn't just visiting. She had moved in. Her clothes were scattered across my furniture, designer bags stacked in my foyer, and my mother was sitting beside her at my dining table. But it wasn't just the invasion of privacy that chilled me, it was what they were holding. Spreads of legal documents were laid out across the table alongside my father's original trust ledger, which they had broken into my home office safe to steal. I hit record. On the high-definition audio, my sister's voice rang out, clear and dripping with arrogance. "I already talked to Dad's old attorney," she giggled, uncorking a bottle of my vintage wine. "He's drafting the paperwork right now. We're altering the deed to transfer the title of this penthouse directly into my name under the pretext of a family trust restructuring. That way, Mom can never force me out, and little Miss Perfect won't be able to do a damn thing when she gets back from her business trip." My mother raised her glass. "Are you sure his attorney will go through with it? It seems risky." My sister laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "He's in on it. He gets a 10% cut of Dad's hidden offshore account once the property title clears. By the time she lands in 2 weeks, the court records will be updated, the deed will be legally mine, and she'll be homeless. She's too timid to ever fight back anyway. Remember that detail. It matters later." My hands were shaking, not with fear, but with absolute, cold rage. They didn't just want my property. They were committing outright forgery, conspiracy, and real estate fraud with a corrupt attorney to strip me of everything I owned. I immediately downloaded the encrypted video file and forwarded the clip to my personal attorney, a ruthless senior partner at the city's most formidable legal firm, who also happened to be a former federal prosecutor. 11 seconds into watching the clip, my attorney called me back. His voice was deadpan and chillingly calm. "That's a crime," he said simply. "In fact, that's 3 federal felonies recorded in ultra-high definition with full audio clarity." "What do we do?" I asked, my voice deadly steady. "You do nothing," he instructed. "Let them proceed. Let the attorney file the fraudulent deed. Let your sister sign her name to the official state land registry. The moment she signs that forged document, the trap snaps shut." That was their first mistake. They assumed my silence was submission. For the next 10 days, I watched through the silent lens of my security cameras as my sister systematically took over my life. She threw wild parties in my living room, invited her friends over to drink my collection, and even posted photos on social media claiming she had finally bought her dream penthouse. My mother helped her pack up my clothes and stack them in trash bags in the storage unit. Every single action was logged, saved, and backed up to a secure cloud server. When I finally landed back in the city, I didn't go home immediately. I met my attorney at his office. The corrupt lawyer my father had briefly used years ago had officially taken the bait. He had filed the fraudulent deed transfer with the county clerk's office, forging my signature and misrepresenting my father's trust structure. My sister had officially signed her name as the sole legal owner of my 30-story luxury penthouse. They thought they had won. They thought I was arriving to beg for mercy. When I walked through the front door of my penthouse that afternoon, the scene from the beginning of this story unfolded. My sister stood there with a sneer, surrounded by my packed belongings, handing me an eviction notice drafted by her corrupt lawyer. "You have 1 hour to clear your personal trash out of my home," she said, her voice dripping with venom as my mother looked on with cold indifference. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't lose my composure for even a fraction of a second. I simply pulled out my phone, looked at my watch, and said, "You have 3 minutes." My sister burst out laughing. "3 minutes for what? I own this place now. The deed is filed." "Nobody in this room knows the truth," I said quietly, looking directly at my mother, "including who actually owns this building." Before my sister could retort, a heavy knock echoed through the front door. My sister smirked, assuming it was the building security she had called to throw me out. She strutted over and threw the door wide open. Standing in the hallway were not security guards, but 4 armed detectives from the State Attorney General's Financial Crimes Division, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers and my legal counsel. The smug smile vanished from my sister's face so fast it was almost poetic. Her breath hitched. The air in the room completely changed. "Are you the individual who executed a title transfer deed for this property at 9 o'clock yesterday morning?" the lead detective asked, his voice booming into the grand entryway. My sister went pale. Well, my lawyer handle. "We have a warrant for your arrest for grand larceny, forgery in the 1st degree, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud," the detective interrupted, stepping firmly into the residence. My mother gasped, dropping her teacup. It shattered into a dozen pieces across the marble floor. "What is the meaning of this? This is a family matter. My daughter owns this property." My attorney stepped forward, pulling a sleek tablet from his briefcase. "Actually, she doesn't, and neither do you. What your daughter signed yesterday was a trap. The moment she submitted that forged deed to the county, she committed a Class B felony." My attorney tapped the screen, playing the high-definition security camera audio at full volume right in front of the officers. My sister's own voice blasted through the room, bragging about bribing the lawyer, stealing the trust documents, altering the deed, and leaving me homeless. The color completely drained from my sister's face. Her knees visibly buckled. My mother grabbed the edge of the kitchen island, looking like she was about to faint. "Furthermore," my attorney added smoothly, addressing the lead detective. The attorney who facilitated this fraud was taken into custody 20 minutes ago at his office. He has already begun cooperating with federal prosecutors to reduce his own sentence. He gave up every text message, wire transfer, and email between himself and your daughter. The room descended into utter, suffocating silence. You could have heard a pin drop. The neighbors watching from the hallway gasped in collective shock. The detectives didn't hesitate. They stepped forward, grabbed my sister's arms, and pulled them behind her back. The sharp click of the handcuffs echoed through the open floor plan. Mom, do something," my sister screamed, breaking into hysterical sob as the metal cold wrapped around her wrists. "Tell them, help me." My mother threw herself in front of the officers, panicking. "You can't arrest her. My middle daughter is the trustee. She can just drop the charges. Tell them to stop," she wailed, turning her desperate, tear-filled eyes toward me. "Please, she's your sister. You can't ruin her life over a house." I looked down at my mother, my expression totally impassive. "You told me 3 hours ago that I was selfish enough to handle myself on the street," I said, my voice razor-sharp and utterly devoid of emotion. "Now it's her turn to see how well she handles herself in a cell." The officers dragged my sobbing, hysterical sister out of the penthouse, her designer shoes dragging along the floor she had tried to steal from me. My mother ran after them into the hallway, screaming and pleading to the empty corridor as the elevator doors slid shut. This is where everything changed. The fallout was catastrophic and complete. Because my sister had involved my father's trust accounts in her fraudulent scheme, the state attorney general launched a full audit into all family assets. The corrupt attorney laid out the entire paper trail to save himself from a 20-year sentence. My sister was formally charged with multiple counts of felony fraud, grand larceny, and falsification of state records. Deprived of my father's trust money, which I officially froze and legally reallocated into an untouchable private fund, she couldn't afford the elite criminal defense attorneys she needed. She eventually pleaded guilty to avoid maximum prison time and was sentenced to 4 years in a state penitentiary, alongside mandatory court-ordered restitution. My mother, exposed for her role as an accessory to the break-in and theft of the trust documents, lost her housing allowance from the estate. With no money, no leverage, and her golden child behind bars, she was forced to downsize to a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the far outskirts of the city, living off a minimal fixed income. She tries to call me every month to beg for bail money or forgiveness, but her numbers remain permanently blocked. 6 months later, I walked back into my penthouse. The oak coffee table was replaced, the locks were upgraded to biometric scanners, and the calm, quiet peace of my home was restored. I received a major promotion at my firm, leading the regional fraud investigation unit, turning my sharp eye for deception into an even greater career success. They thought I was weak because I chose not to fight their petty battles. They had no idea that while they were playing dirty, I was playing by the law, and the law always wins. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who they were dealing with? Tell me your story in the comments.